straight into the game. But Layth, I was just going to ask first, what was it like being a journalist with your unique view of the game in an empty stadium?
Yes, yeah, it was very strange. I was there on, I was at St Mary's on Thursday and Bramwell Lane on Sunday as Arsenal correspondent for Varvel. Yeah, it was really, really strange. It was just really eerie. The stadium was obviously absolutely empty apart from 300 people working there, basically. All the staff and security were very friendly, very professional. And it was just strange being in a ground where there was no atmosphere whatsoever. We were at the game in October when Arsenal lost 1-0. And the atmosphere at Bramwell Lane, as we all know, is pretty intense. And it was really strange not to have that. And all you could hear was basically, Mikel Arteta and a few players and the sort of and just the noise from the players. Basically, it was strange, but I thought it made for a more pure atmosphere in terms of you're watching a game for football's sake. Basically, obviously, if I'd have been at home, I'd have maybe been slightly less engaged. But obviously, it was a real privilege to be there, and I really enjoyed it. But it was very, very strange. It's probably one of the strangest games I've reported on. And I've reported on non-league games where there's been like one man and his dog. So it's not the fact there wasn't that many people there. It was the reason why there were no people there in a Premier League stadium, basically. And it was very, very strange, I've got to admit.
Yeah, and what were the protocols like for getting in? Was it all like a rigmarole getting in and out the ground and all that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it had to be, really. It was, they were really strict going through. You had to fill in reams of forms, and you obviously get your temperature tested and things like that. And very, very professional from Sheffield United. Can't knock anyone there. They're all doing their job, and luckily I managed to get in. But it was it was a strange. It was a very, very strange atmosphere. I was really, really engaged in the game. There was obviously sort of 3 or 4 seats away from anyone else in the press box, so you've got a real sort of unique view. The referee was obviously influenced by the fact there was no one there, because I'm not sure he would have given a penalty if there was 30,000 people in the ground. But I'm sure we're going to talk about that anyway. But I enjoyed it, but it was very, very strange.
Yeah, very interesting. Right, on to the game itself. Arteta said Arsenal needed that win. Obviously, are we seeing Arsenal wake up after a sluggish start? Is there enough evidence for that, Dan?
Yeah, I think so. I think the main thing was the spirit they showed to obviously go on and win the game after conceding what would have been a late equaliser. There's still a long way to go. I think we all know that, but there are some promising signs in terms of the team spirit and that will and that drive and the fight. There's still plenty of work to do on the pitch in terms of tactically, recruitment, whatever. But yeah, there are some positive signs there. I think we've said that throughout Arteta's reign, to be honest.
Yeah, obviously we saw Louise come back in to the starting lineup. Jamie Carragher's prophecy that he's never going to play in the Premier League again for Arsenal is still on the cards. But what did you think of his performance, Glen?
Yeah, I mean, he did okay. It was better than his performance against City when he came on, wasn't he? I was just saying, you're asking me that question, but I have to admit, and I tweeted during the game, that I'm finding these sort of post-lockdown games extremely strange and very, very unengaging. I don't know, it's a lack of crowd noise that sort of is not there to sort of prompt you at moments, but I just find my concentration lapsing and I'm just drifting off.
Yeah.
So by the end of the game, with all the substitutions and stoppages and stuff, I can almost not tell you who was finally left on the pitch. But, he did okay. There's still a defensive mess up towards the end, wasn't there?
Yeah. Do you boys agree with that? I mean, we had a few responses to Glen's tweet saying that they agreed with that assessment of the restart football. Serge, have you found that so far?
Well, the team's definitely been more sluggish and a bit slower out the traps. They've definitely looked like they've got a bit of a bit of that summer weight that they put on in lockdown, not knowing when they're being back. They're a bit slower, a bit chunkier, but it's a different experience. But I've seen plenty of games played behind closed doors before, and these are definitely better than those because they've actually bothered with crowd sound online. There seems to be a little bit more interest there, but it's definitely not as peak fun as it was previously.
Yeah. Dan, do you think Arsenal were taken by surprise by the sort of how it feels to play in an empty stadium? You think they've taken to it worse than other teams and now they're sort of getting towards it?
Well, I think it certainly helped them yesterday. I think if they'd have gone to Bramwell Lane, where the crowd would have been on their back the whole time, as Layth said, we went for the Premier League game late last year, and yeah, the crowd there is ridiculous just noisy. So I think they were helped by it yesterday in not having, a home crowd on their back. I'm not sure if it's particularly going to affect them that badly, to be honest, not having a crowd at the Emirates. I mean, insert joke about quiet crowds at the Emirates anyway. So, yeah, I think they've started to cope with it and they're dealing with it well.
Glenn, you had a point?
Yeah, just in relation to that sort of, the away fans not being able to get on the visiting team's back. I don't know, I picked up on it yesterday. It might have been occurring in previous games and it's just passed me by, but I noticed over the tannoy at Bramall Lane yesterday, they were pumping out boos when decisions weren't going in the home side's favour, which I thought was a bit out of order. And they really cranked them up for our penalty. Did anyone else notice that?
Yeah. I think it's quite good actually.
Have they been doing it in other games?
Yeah.
Oh, right, sorry, I didn't notice that. It was just first. That's the only time that I got out of my pram watching that game. I was going, it's a bit unsported.
I've got to say on top of that, you good point about the PA, but prior to the game and at half time, the PA at Sheffield United absolutely blasted out sort of, I don't know what you call it, stadium anthems, Kasabi and those sort of type of songs. And it wasn't a coincidence that, Sheffield United had a really, really good start to the season, basically, because their home crowd is almost worth a point, or it certainly gets behind their backs and gives them almost like a 12th man, really. And they were trying to do that yesterday, and it almost made your ears bleed. It was so loud in a bid to sort of raise the players' adrenaline levels potentially, but it didn't work because Sheffield United weren't the team that they played at the Emirates when they got a deserved 1-1 draw. And they certainly weren't the team that beat us 1-0, and it could have been a lot more at Bramall Lane in October, basically. I think they're spent now. I just think they've climbed one mountain and they're not going to climb another. Even when they equalised, I was convinced we were going to go through. But it was really interesting, like you say, about the noise, because they were really, really pumping out the music in a bid to get the players going. And it didn't work for them ultimately, but it was quite interesting about that.
And I noticed they read out the players' names as well, didn't they? Is that just to remind the players they're actually starting? Because no one else wants to know, does it?
Well, yeah. When I was at St Mary's on Thursday, it was so hot. It was almost one of the hottest games I've ever been to. And the Arsenal subs were sat right in front of me. And you could see Oza with the umbrella, and Reece Nelson had a shirt on his head because he was so hot, and all the sort of staff and officials were handing them drinks throughout the game. It was ridiculously hot that day, I've got to say, basically. But
yeah.
And obviously after the winner from Mr. Danny Ceballos.
Where's the paella?
I'll just bring out a bowl of.
Don't worry about the last bit of the song, Jesus.
No, I was going to say, where's the last bit?
I did a tweet and I started out the word, and it seemed to do quite well.
We'll leave that off our PG podcast. But obviously now Arsenal are through to face Man City in the semi-final. Obviously, probably not Arteta's favoured opponent, was it, Serge?
Yeah, I mean, the draw wasn't exactly going to be favourable to us, irrespective of who we drew. You've got Chelsea, who seem to be on fairly good form, especially against when they played City. United seem to always manage to spangle the win somehow. And City, in their game yesterday or the day before, against Newcastle, they just looked like they were just so comfortable on the ball. And they haven't really lost any of their sort of team ethic over the lockdown. They seem to really know where everyone is on the pitch. I mean, that goal from Sterling against Newcastle was just easy. And if we've got a centre-back partnership of Mustafi and David Luiz, I fear that we might see more of those balls whipping in with a lot more comfort.
Yeah. And we'll discount reality for a moment and just ask whether, regardless of the result against Man City in the performance, would a win for Arsenal in the FA Cup, would that salvage the season? Layth.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I knew that.
Silverware, it's a good year, regardless where you finish in the league. And I'd love to win the FA Cup again.
Also, European qualification, of course.
That's a question that sort of supplementary question we can answer in terms of would that affect them next season when they're trying to regroup with the additional Europa League games. But for me, I want to win every competition Arsenal go in for. And to win the FA Cup would be absolutely amazing, considering the three other teams in it. I do remember in 2000. 2017, Arsenal played City in a semi-final. I covered that game at Wembley, and I remember Pep Guardiola. It was a tremendous performance from Arsenal, who beat City 2-1. And I remember Pep Guardiola was sort of in the theatre afterwards, in the bowels of Wembley, and you sort of, there's hundreds of journalists there, you're firing questions at him and stuff. And he was gutted. He was absolutely gutted. He turned into Sam Allardyce or something, because he basically said, "Oh, the team who scores more goals wins." That's all. That was a level that he was reduced to, because he was so gutted about the fact that he'd lost to Arsenal and the fact that Arsenal played so well. And there's Chelsea and potentially Chelsea in the final if Arsenal beat Man City, and that's exactly what happened in 2017. Beat City in the semi-finals, beat Chelsea in the final. Bring it on. Why not?
Dan, what's the opposing view to that?
Well, I've got two things. Firstly, does winning the FA Cup not qualify you for the Europa League?
Yeah, it does.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Just wanted to make that clear. The second thing, I don't think it saves the season, but I think it gives Arteta something massive to build on.
It's a golden ticket, isn't it?
Yeah, we've said it so many times about how winning a trophy can boost teams' morale and, get things starting to move in the right direction. I think if they were to win the FA Cup, it would be a massive kind of foundation for Arteta to build upon and work with. Personally, I don't think they'll do it. I think City are going to be too much for us, and I think they've got better behind closed doors than they were in front of crowds. Personally, so yeah, it's going to be a tough ask, but you never know. We've done it before, as Layth said a few years back. So we'll wait and see.
Glen, do you think it's possible?
Well, as Layth mentioned there, I mean, I didn't think we had a prayer in the last semi-final when we played City, and we ground that one out. And then even going into the Chelsea final when we had, most of our defence ripped out, again, I didn't give us much chance. And, you never know in the Cup. There's always a chance. I wouldn't write us off completely. It'd be one of those things that football throws up, doesn't it? Arteta getting one over on his ex-club. So
yeah,
let's try and sort of, keep our fingers crossed. Is that going to be at Wembley?
Yeah.
Yes. The weekend of July 18th.
Why?
18th.
Why?
Empty Wembley, yeah. That will be
All right.
vision, yeah.